This is the Kitchen Sink WP Podcast, episode 435.
I program my home computer.
We have a server crash, 404 error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. Hello, everybody. This is Adam Silver, the host of the Kitchen Sink WP podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right. Upcoming events. There are none. Nothing at all. No WordCamps. But WordCamp Montclair, New Jersey just happened this past weekend. And I didn't go, like I mentioned, I think last week. I was going to, but my daughter came down for the weekend. Haven't seen her since March. So she took precedence as she should. So from college. So yeah. Anyway. All right. Moving on. Segment 1 in the news. A couple things here. WordPress drama. Hashtag WPDrama is back. If you want to find out more about it, go ahead and hit Google over there. Just type in, WordPress drama, I guess. That's all I have to say about that. Also in the news, Elementor, they are a plugin and theme company. They laid off 15% of the workforce. They are citing rising inflation and impending recession, which is unfortunate and kind of scary. I actually may have a follow-up on this entire topic in a future episode about jobs and whatnot. I'm working on an idea there. We'll see if it pans out. So there's that. Yeah, kind of unfortunate that some people are losing some jobs. But there is work out there. And I believe Michelle Frechette, a friend of the show and a friend of mine, she does a WordPress Wednesday, like find a job kind of thing. So find her online as well to see if you're looking for a job. All right, moving on. Segment 2, the meat and potatoes of this week's episode, all about starter sites. Yes, we're talking about starter sites. What is a starter site? Let's start with that question. Well, it's simple, really. It's the basic template you might use once you have a new client project, or any project for that matter. In this case, it's not just the WordPress theme as a template. That's, we usually use themes in this kind of general terminology. That would be a starter site, like a starter template. Yes, fine. But in this case, the whole enchilada, or at least 90% of it, the majority of it, is the starter site. There are a few variables for projects, but having a preset, I believe, is a solid best practice. It's something I've implemented on my Concierge WP agency side of things. So next question would be, why have a starter site? First and foremost, it saves time, a bunch of time, and it takes the variable out for the most part of just remembering things like the checklist. I'm a huge person for checklists, and the Checklist Manifesto, one of my favorite books of all time. But in this case, it saves a ton of time, and it removes that variable that you may forget something. So a starter site has themes that you've installed, the plugins, the setting, the licensing, etc. In my case, over at CWP, at Concierge WP, we have 2 currently. We have the basic one, no bells and whistles, and we have an e-commerce one. And I'm actually thinking most recently about adding a 3rd or 4th because I see some opportunities that it may just make sense to have a few others as far as a category. We'll talk about that in a second, possibly here. So again, it just saves a bunch of time. And who creates it? If you have a process in place and you have a starter site ready to go, a basic place to keep it one place and have a process like how does this happen, then anybody can create a new starter site for a brand new project. It doesn't have to be me. I don't need to go set up a server necessarily. It's a couple clicks of a button. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So with that being said, what do I have in my starter site? So basic Concierge WP setups. We have WordPress installed, obviously. We changed the time zone to make sure it's correct. In our case, I use East Coast time, just default New York. So just do that because that's where I am. We changed the permalinks, make sure those are updated. Users, there's 3 people, 3 admins to start. There's me, my project manager, and my developer. And that just makes it, again, much easier to remember who needs access to the site. Those 3 people to begin with need full admin access. I have a theme, the basic theme, and a child theme of that main theme. In our case, we use the Beaver Builder library of products. So Beaver Builder, Beaver Themer, Beaver Builder Child Theme, and is that it? Yeah, and the plugin itself. So, but the theme itself right there. So the theme, the themer, and the child theme. And the theme add-ons. So we use UABB, and that's the main one we actually use. I also use a couple sets of plugins here. So primary plugins, we'll use a forms plugin, SEO, analytics, and a client sharing / review type of plugin. In my case, I'm not trying to call it any big companies right now, but like Project Huddle is the one I pay for, and it's installed from the get-go. That way, when the client needs to see it and give us notes, it's already there. Okay. Secondary level of plugins, and this comes into play really on the second version of the starter site, is e-commerce, learning management system, LMS, custom post types, and then within that, a user role editor, because those other things are, usually require some additional customizations in the user role. So those are the primary two things that we have. So like I said, we have e-commerce, and we have in both of that. So I have e-commerce starter site with both Woo and EDD. Depends, and we can turn one or the other off, delete it if we don't need it. But I don't need a primary Woo and a primary, EDD. It's okay to have them together, in my opinion. So there you go. So e-commerce, learning management system, and like custom post types, and then a user role editor. So that's the basic setup for the two that we use on a consistent basis. And that's the key there, is that we're consistent. Now, things to consider. Who has access? I said that before, the three of us right now. And who does the updates and migrations, and how do you do this? And where do I keep all this? So as far as keeping things up to date, and it took me a minute to think about that, because one time I went to clone the site. By the way, that's how we do it. Let me back up here. So I keep all this on our development server. I'm currently using Cloudways basic server, pretty low end, pretty affordable. I think I pay $12 a month, and it's great. I have it there. We clone the site on that server. We rename it, and we get to work. And that's the key. Now, keeping things up to date, not hard. It just took a reminder in my counter once a month. We go in and run the updates. Make sure everything is up and current. The PM and the developer could do this as well. Once again, removing me from the equation, because sometimes I forget. And that way we just make sure the first of the month, everything gets updated. Simple as that. Licenses, by the way, are also in there as well. For all the premium themes and plugins that we use, all the licenses are in and installed and active. And it makes just a huge time saver across the board. So, and then of course, migrations. We can migrate off of this to a different host, which we do all the time as well. And while it moves, let's say, to the client server, more often than not, it moves to my server for managed hosting. If there's a problem by chance, in this case, about 6 months ago, we did move it to a client server, and they got hacked. So luckily, we actually had a copy of the site still over on the development server. We did enable that for them, pushed it back out, and they were very happy with that. But that was actually, they got lucky, because normally after we launch, we remove everything. I remove stuff within 30 days of migration, if not sooner, maybe actually less than 30 days. It's probably about 10 days tops, really. So, because then they've ideally moved to a maintenance plan, and we have a backup somewhere else, not from the development server. But they didn't do that, and they got lucky, so all was good. Anyway, so that's what we do. Again, the new vertical markets, or the thing I see opportunity, might be learning management, or it might be membership. That could be another one if you wanted to. It could be, different forums, as I've been talking about forums a lot lately. So you could do this for multiple different categories and have a starter site that way. It's working for us. It's much faster than having to remember which plugins, going and getting them, getting the licenses. They're all there. We clone the site, change the name, and off we go. So there you go. Highly recommended. Best practice. It's one of my favorite things that we've implemented in the last probably, a year and a half ago. About a year ago, I guess. And there you go. So I highly recommend doing this. Find a relatively a good development place and location. And again, this is only now coming to fruition, really, because I have the team and we've grown. Whereas in the past, and I'll still do this for some testing locally, I still use desktop server locally. But my clients and my staff we can't collaborate that way, and it just doesn't work for us in that level. So, all right, moving on. So that's it. If you have more questions, you want to see how I'm doing it over at Cloudways, let me know. I guess I could do a video if someone's really interested, and I'll put it out there on the YouTube channel. All right, moving on, segment 3, tip and tool of the week. This one is a theme, which is rare for me to mention this because I'm such a Beaver Builder, user. But I was talking to my friend Courtney. Hi, Courtney. And she was mentioning a theme called BlockBase as a clean starter site. And it's actually really interesting. I was looking at something for another client who may not need Beaver Builder or our services from an agency's perspective, but wants a clean, easy site to do something real quick with. This is actually made by Automatic, of all companies. Pretty cool. It's free. It's in the repository. I looked at it. It looks pretty cool. Check it out. It's over in themes/BlockBase over at WordPress.org. So if you're interested, check that out. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. If you have any questions, by all means, go ahead and send it in via email, adam@KitchensinkWP.com, or use that SpeakPipe function on the website. If you want to support the show, you can become a Patreon. I would love that. You can also sponsor the show. There's a form on the website. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right, bye-bye.